Absolutely, but we had a very good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk. He's going through an election now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us.
I should just note the absolutely at the beginning of that was a reporter's question on whether tariffs are coming against Canada, and the answer, absolutely. So what that looks like. So what should we make of this moment that we are in this U.S.-Canada trade war at the beginning of a Canadian election campaign?
Well, if to be believed Mark Carney, there's no reason to doubt that what he says in his statement and there in person was that he also told Donald Trump in response to the April 2nd tariff still being on, that Canada is still prepared to retaliate with its own tariffs.
Today, President Trump and I spoke on the phone. We had a very constructive discussion, and we agreed to begin comprehensive negotiations about a new economic and security relationship between our two sovereign countries immediately following the federal election.
When you look at the tape of Donald Trump and you hear from Mark Carney, they don't seem to be saying things that conflict with each other, at least yet. We have run into that in the past where the readouts or the interpretation of what the call was like or the meeting was like, and not just between Canada and the U.S. We've seen that in other meetings Donald Trump has had where the interpretation seemed very different. They took different things away from the meeting. But for today, this seems like they're somewhat on the same page in how they perceive the meeting. What we don't know is when Mark Carney says that his impression is that Donald Trump has sort of a new impression of how strong Canada is, that perhaps he underestimated Canada before and now he isn't. I don't think we have any way of verifying that without asking Donald Trump himself, but perhaps that's a positive sign if true. And for now, we have a president not mentioning Canada being the cherished 51st state going forward, either publicly or, according to Mark Carney, privately. So I suppose that is progress as well. There's a little sigh of relief that today seemed to go well. But I think we're all a little bit on tenterhooks about whether or not we'll be surprised with something at another point that will just revert back to where we were before. And that's all this is really a wait and see kind of situation.